Hello, my name's Rob Edwards. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today we are talking Wheel of Time. In particular, we are talking about in what ways was the show a significant letdown from the books. This is a companion piece to last week's What the Show Did Better Than the Books, and I am excited to get into it. Before I do, though, just a couple of things. Firstly, I want to thank everybody who watched, liked, disliked, and commented on my last video. Really love to see that engagement, and I'm really hoping that people will be similarly keen to tell me their thoughts on this video as well. My favourite comment last time was absolutely the guy who said that my title for last week's video was absurd as my hair. And that didn't bother me in any way, shape or form. So I'm, very glad that we're able to continue our conversation. I'm going to take this off. My hair is absurd. I have no problem with that as a comment. It has always been absurd. I am trying to get it under control. With that, a few ground rules about my criteria here. When I'm talking about comparing things the book did against the things the show did, it has to be something that both things attempted. I'm not going to say, oh yes, well, the book did Camelin so much better than the show, because the show never went to Camelin. Now, whether we think that was a good choice or a bad choice, that's not what we're here for today. It was a bad choice, but, I want to talk about the things where both the book and the show have tried to realise that thing, and that the book version is definitively superior. Not just a little bit better, not just a bit more detailed because we have more opportunity to see into a point of view, or we get more prose or world building or description, but a particular thing that the show and the book attempted, which the show has failed to live up to. I forgot to give a spoiler warning. Spoilers in this for all of season 1 of the show and all of The Eye of the World, book 1 of The Wheel of Time. Do you like my t-shirt, by the way? The wheel weaves as the wheel wills. Yeah. Anyway, back to where we were. Let's get into it. First up, something of a dishonourable mention. I'm including this even though it kind of breaks the rules of what I was just saying, because it's about Matt's departure at the end of episode 6, something which did not happen in the books, and Matt had a role at the end of The Eye of the World. Of course, the reason Matt departed at the end of episode 6 was all about Barney and his departure from the show, so I can't really knock the show for having to scrabble to change things around for Matt and his absence. So what's really in my top 5 things the book has done definitively better than the show? First up, it's a borderline case as well, whether this breaks the rules I just set up or not, because this is something which is purely worse because of time. In the book, we have plenty of time to see these 5 characters from the Two Rivers interact. We understand their relationships. We understand how they interact with each other. But here in the show, partly because of the choice to shift the point of view to Moiraine away from Rand, we are looking at a situation where we don't really understand how these characters connect in anything like the same way. We don't really see Nynaeve interact with Matt at all, apart from when he's being cursed by the dagger. So we don't really get a sense of how these people connect together. And then this is exacerbated by something the show does, which the book does not attempt to do, not in any overt way anyway, and that is this suddenly appearing and then forgotten about love triangle between Egwene, Perrin and Rand. This is arguably, I think, the worst thing the show did across the board, which is why I had to put it on my list, even if it is a little bit of an edge case for what I'm trying to do with this video. I really did not like it. I really did not want it in my show. And yeah, that is one of the worst things that the show did. But there are more. Perrin. In my video about talking about things which I think the show did better than the books, I talked about my love of show Matt. I know that's not a universally popular opinion, but I personally really like Show Matt. Unfortunately, this has kind of suffered in terms of being able to give enough screen time, enough interest, enough plot to Perrin to deal with. Now, there are several factors at play here. First is this need to hide who the Dragon Reborn is because the show wants the mystery. I still like the fact that there was a mystery there. I do wonder whether they could have possibly started ruling people out as we went through the show, and that would have given an opportunity to have a little more about Perrin and his golden eyes thing. I hated Perrin fridging his wife in episode 1. That's just bad. And I don't care if there's more stuff to come or reveals to be had, or was she a dark friend, or, all these other wild speculations you have on the internet. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We get introduced to this character just so that Perrin can kill her and then angst about it for the rest of the season. That is just bad storytelling. And apart from that, Perrin doesn't have a great deal to do. We have a bit of a curiosity about him and the wolves. We have a confrontation between him and Padan Fain at the end of episode 8. But again, I feel that should have been Matt, or there would have been Matt if Barney hadn't left. So, if that's taken away from Perrin as well, what left is there? He hears about the Way of the Leaf and sort of ponders that, essentially. And that is pretty much his entire role in the show. In the book, we explore a lot more about his relationship with the wolves, what that means for him, how that's going to affect him going forward, how he struggles against it, how the actions of the wolves affect him and his interactions with the White Cloaks. All of this stuff is much better developed in the book. And it could have been developed better in the show. This is something which the show could have done better if it had made different choices. I think poor old Perrin really suffers across the entire show. Now, I really like that we saw the attack on Winter's Night. I'm really glad that we saw Moiraine doing her thing. I wasn't a fan of the way they shot her use of the power. This bright white light on her, as I talked about, I think in my episode 1 review, kind of making it look like she was green screened onto the scene, even though she was actually there for it. So that was a bit weird. What I'm not a fan of is generally how channeling is being realised, and how the rules of channeling seem to be so different, so unformed in the show. In the book, we get this really interesting thing where Moiraine describes channeling sickness to Nynaeve, and we then get to see Rand going through channeling sickness. And if you were paying attention in the description of to Nynaeve about what channeling sickness was, and then you pay attention to what's going on with Rand during the sort of first 2/3 of the book, you really start to see that he is a channeler. And we have this whole interaction of whether women can see other women who can channel and understand that they have that ability. How men and women interact and how they see each other's weaves. All of that was kind of played a little bit fast and loose in the show. And one of the things I love about Wheel of Time, one of the things that I really enjoy about Wheel of Time, is quite how crunchy the magic system is. You can understand, X means Y, and that implies Z. And I don't know that the show is doing that. I can understand the show not dedicating the time to doing it, but the things that we have seen them actually dedicate time to about channeling seems a whole lot woollier, a whole lot less set in stone. And I don't like that. I really like Robert Jordan's approach to the magic system, and I want to see the magic system get harder. And there's still scope for that. I mean, we've talked before about how, a lot of what Robert Jordan wrote in The Eye of the World hadn't kind of crystallised for him yet, how the power was going to work, particularly in terms of the ending of The Eye of the World. we never hear about some of these ideas again. So I think there is room. I think there is room for season 2 to get more of a handle on this and to restate some of the ideas that have been glossed over or confused or muddied in the show. There are a couple of problems with things that Aes Sedai have specifically said about the power and how if they were to start contradicting those things, they would start making them into liars, which of course they can't because they have the Oath Rod and they cannot tell a lie. But I still think there is scope for making changes here to the way the One Power is realised in later seasons. A lot of my problems with the show seem to come to a head in episode 8. And again, this image here is it's partly related to the last thing. The rules about linking seem to have changed, and that has manifested in this scene that we have here. But I also think this is really talking about the battle at Tarwin's Gap. Now, it's odd to say that the book does this better because the book doesn't do the battle at Tarwin's Gap terribly well either. And again, this is because of COVID. This is because of not being able to revisit sets, and I understand all that. But it doesn't mean that what we got here was a quality realization. We have a distinct problem because of this scene of lowering the stakes. The fact that these 5 untrained channelers, 3 of them were not able to be strong enough to actually become full Aes Sedais. 2 of them have the power but know nothing about the use of it. The 5 of these are able to link together and destroy an army of 10,000 Trollocs, 20,000 Trollocs? Even if it was the lower estimate of 5,000 Trollocs. That's ridiculous, the fact that they should be able to do that. I don't like it, and it is lowering of the stakes of, generally speaking, of the power versus the Shadow Spawn, and it's just not a good thing. But, of course, my biggest and most significant problem I had about things the book did better than the show, Narg was supposed to be smart. The fact that we don't get Narg having a line of dialogue, no, I'm lying, of course. It's not what My biggest problem, in fact, with the show is the way it is treating death and the appearance of death. Now, on one level, I kind of understand. That having a character like Agelmar in season 1, who we aren't going to see again until season 7 or 8, maybe. It's difficult to be able to bring that actor back after 5 or 6 years. I get that. And, on one level, perhaps easier for him to have his moment, kill him off and bring a different character back for later in the show. Because, even if we bring back a character called Agelmar recast, we're effectively doing the same. We're losing the connection with what went before. So, is Agelmar dead? That's the whole other side of this, of course. We have a number of fake-out deaths in this show. Lots of them. Not in every episode, but in a lot of episodes, we have fake-out deaths of main cast characters that are there to provide artificial drama in the show, and I'm not about that. Robert Jordan's not immune. There are fake-out deaths, of course, in the books as well. I read somewhere there was one about Nynaeve at the end of Eye of the World. It's not fresh enough in my mind to be sure about that. But Nynaeve gets 2. And Lan gets 1. And Moiraine gets 1. And Loial has got 1. And is Uno dead? And the other guy who isn't Ingtar, apparently, is he dead? There are so many characters who aren't, Ingtar, for example, and Uno, they are not characters who are going to be here and then back again in, season 7. Uno is a major character, major-ish. He's a significant secondary character anyway, in the events of Book 2. Has he been killed off? Is he still alive? Is this another fake-out death? the fact that we are setting up this situation where these characters are getting killed off and then, oh, actually, no, not really, or at least even appearing to be killed off, and oh, not really. Again, it's about lowering the stakes. It's about going, okay, well, any time a character looks dead, Egwene can just cry over the corpse and they will magically spring back to life again. It's not good. It is not good for the show. It is not good for the series. So there we go. Of all the things the show did differently to the books, of all the new things they included which weren't in the books, of all the things which were in the books they cut out, these are the 5 things that I think are the most negative things about this show, for me, in my opinion. If you have different opinions, if you think any of these things that I've talked about today were good, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. If you have other things that you think were terrible, this is the one time I'm going to encourage you to write in my comments. I'm not a negative person, generally speaking. I don't really want to see a lot of negativity, but if there are things that you've seen in the show which really, really didn't live up to the equivalent in the book, don't tell me about Step-In wasn't there, and don't tell me about, we didn't see White Bridge or any of this stuff. Show choices are show choices in terms of what budget they had, what they were able to realise, what they were able to emphasise and de-emphasise. I don't, much as I would love to see Caemlyn, I don't care that we didn't get it. What I want to know is things that were in both but didn't work for you as well in the show as they did in the book. Anyway, that's it from me today. I will be back. I may be next week. I may not have a video up because I am moving house this weekend. The shelves are now empty. I am ready to move house on Saturday. Whether I will be in a state to record a video next week, I don't know. I'm hopeful because I still have one last Wheel of Time show series video I want to do, which is my final thoughts about Season 1 and predictions for Season 2. So that may be next week if I can get things together by next week, but it may be the week after. And then after that, I have plans for one final special treat, but more on that later. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.